Everyone, Namaskar. Welcome to Newsview channel. So we're going to speak about a topic which is by the name of ethanol, जो आज की तारीख में यूज़ हो रहे हैं आपके गाड़ियों में and almost in all the petrol pumps in India. Now let's try to understand what is this ethanol. So ethanol is basically the uses of ethanol as well as the petrol. Now ethanol in that is used 20% and petrol is used 80%, so it becomes E20. जिसके बारे में आज की तारीख में बहुत चर्चा हो रही है इंडिया भर में. So let's try and understand what this ethanol is, what the government is saying, what the opposition is saying, and what the public is saying. Now, India's drive to blend more biofuels with petrol has helped the country cut millions of tons of carbon dioxide emissions and save precious dollar reserves. But it has also sparked worries among vehicle owners and food policy experts about its potential impact on fuel efficiency and food security. Now, it's important to understand, last month India achieved its objective of blending 20% ethanol with petrol, known as E20, which we commonly use this term, 5 years ahead of its target. So, initially it was to be done by 2030, but then we have achieved it in 2025. Now, that is something which every Indian again should be proud of, that we have, pre exceeded the target which was set by ourselves. Now, the government views this as a game changer in reducing carbon emissions and trimming oil imports. Since 2014, ethanol blending has helped India cut 69.8 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions and saved somewhere approximately 1.36 trillion rupees, which is equal to $15.5 billion in foreign exchange. Now, India's rollout of fuel blended with 20% ethanol will hurt a vehicle's mileage. That will hurt, but it will hurt by somewhere 2% to 6%. But it is safe to use. A lobby group representing the country's automakers also said the same thing, aiming to assuage the motorist concerns in the world's third largest car market. Yes, India is the third largest car market in the world. So India set a 2025 target years ago for 20% ethanol blending in fuel, right? Though it was a short term, because the larger goal was 2030, but then the shorter goal was 2025, and it did achieve it. And then it is now called as E20 as part of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji's focus on clean energy. But in recent weeks, it has become the only choice at nearly all fueling stations, causing furore among the drivers over its impact on vehicle performance and durability, especially uh, the older vehicles which people have. However, driving in real world conditions can contribute to higher drops in the mileage due to variety of factors. Now, it also depends. See, we are saying to 2% to 6%, but it also depends on the way we drive our vehicles and in the conditions we drive our vehicles, right? One is that okay, the conditions are very good, the roads are smooth as anything, and then you drive your vehicle on that. Okay, it's a particular what speed which is set. Let's say we talk about highways, right? So what happens on highways is that you got a constant speed, maybe speed of 80, 100, 110, or maybe 120, right? But when it comes to city factors, and that is where you find, a lot of traffic jams. That is where you find that the roads are a bit bumpy, and that is where the mileage might tend to, vary between, I mean, larger than 2 to 6%. It might go to 8 to 10% also. Now, on road, it could be very different because of the way in which the vehicles are maintained and driven. So, difference will be there. Now, couple of weeks ago, I mean, a week ago, this particular thing went on to the Supreme Court also, right? So, the Supreme Court of India on Mondays, that is September 1st, dismissed a petition challenging the nationwide rollout of 20% ethanol blended petrol, which is the E20, which alleged that millions of motorists were being compelled to use fuel unsuited to their vehicle without the option of availing ethanol-free petrol. There were a lot of suggestions which were coming out. Okay, there could be one dispenser in the petrol pumps, or a couple of dispensers which could dispense E20 fuel, and the other one could be a normal one, right? So the Supreme Court on 1st of September clearly dismissed this petition. That is something to be understood. Now E20 fuel has been gradually introduced in 2023, and it's not that E20 fuel has come in 2025 itself. Now this was being done gradually, and it started off in 2023, replacing earlier blends such as E5 and E10, which were regarded as more compatible with older vehicles. Now these alternatives have now been phased out from almost all of countries' 90,000 fuel stations. Now the ethanol blending program is central to India's strategy to lower carbon emissions and reduce dependence on crude oil imports. So this becomes very, very important. While there is no official data on the impact of E20 fuel on engines, consumers routinely share and anecdotes about their vehicles deteriorating mileage on social media. But do not believe all of them, because many of them could be fabricated, right? And it is too early to predict that what impact is it having on the vehicles or the older vehicles, right? Now, many standard insurance policies. Now we talk about the insurance policies. What does the insurance policy says and everything. Now, many standard insurance policies in India also don't provide cover for damage due to the use of non-compliant fuel. Consumers need to take add-on policies, but even those claims can be denied or downgraded basis on fine print of the policy. We know how insurance policies are, right? I mean, insurance policies are such that there are a lot of terms and conditions, and most of the people, right, are time hard pressed and do not go through all the pointers mentioned in the insurance policies, right? So these claims, even if you have an insurance policy, right, which says that okay, we will give you a cover due to non-compliant fuel, right, but even these claims can be denied or downgraded. Now, there's another thing which is brewing up is opposition, trying to take mileage out of the entire situation, and then getting Nitin Gadkari into it. In fact, not even he himself, Nitin Gadkari, but his sons also into it. Okay, so let's understand how are Nitin Gadkari's sons involved in the ethanol industry and what companies do they run. Now, Nitin Gadkari's sons, Nikhil and Sarang Gadkari, are involved in the sugar and ethanol industry. Now, Nikhil Gadkari runs Sian Agro Industries, whose revenue grew from 17 crore in quarter one fiscal year, which is financial year 2024, to 510 crore rupees in quarter one financial year 2026. And stock rose from rupees 40 to 668 in 16 months. Now, Sarang Gadkari manages Manas Agro, a subsidiary of Sian Agro, also in sugar and ethanol. Now, critics allege conflicts of interest, and we know by critics whom do we mean, C for critics and C for, you can understand that very well. So, critics allege over here that conflicts of interest are there, citing Gadkari family investments in Purti Group and related companies benefiting from government contracts. You can go online and understand what Purti Group is all about. So, Nikhil Gadkari was reportedly a director at IRB Infrastructure. Again, you can Google IRB Infrastructure, which gave loans to Purti Group during Gadkari's tenure as Maharashtra PWD Minister. Now, Gadkari and his family deny any wrongdoing. Investigations by the authorities, including the Income Tax Department, which is the IT department, found no pending cases or violations. Now, some vehicle manufacturers are offering way to mitigate this situation of E20. There's some ray of hope, some good news over here. But this ray of hope or some good news over here might not be at free of cost. So, Maruti Suzuki, India's biggest four-wheeler maker, is reportedly likely to introduce an E20 material kit that could cost up to 6,000 rupees. That is approximately $69. Now, the kit will repeatedly replace components like fuel lines, seals, and gaskets. At the same time, Bajaj, one of the leading India two-wheeler maker, right, has advised using a fuel cleaner that could cost around 100 rupees, which is approximately $1.15 for a full tank of petrol, right? So 100 rupees for a full tank of petrol. In, a, in 2021, a document of India's transition to E20, published by Niti Aayog, a government think tank, had highlighted some of these concerns. It recommended tax benefits for buying E20 compliant vehicles along with a lower retail price for the fuel. I mean, the government has defended its decision to not pass the recommendations, saying that at the time of the report's release at that point of time, ethanol was cheaper than petrol. Now, over time, procurement price of ethanol has increased, and now the weighted average price of ethanol is higher than the cost of a refined petrol, which was not initially the case. The E20 fuel program is part of India's strategy to reduce crude oil imports, boost the agricultural economy because you have sugarcane, you have maize, you have other grains which are involved into it and producing ethanol and transitioning itself into a clean energy. Now, these are some commitments we do at the global forum when the head of states visit, or when there are when there are ministers in the government who visit the high profile weather events or climate change events, and that is where they do some commitments, and that is where India had done some commitments, and India is abiding to it, and hence there would be a transition for a cleaner energy, right? So India, however, is planning to go even beyond T20. I'm sorry, E20. The country will now gradually scale towards E25, E27, and E30 in a phased, calibrated manner. And there are countries who are running on E20. There are countries who are running their vehicles on E20 fuel. Countries like Brazil who have been successfully doing it since a long time. So there are examples of countries who are doing it, and the car owners are more or large the same, when it comes to Brazil, India, or any other countries. You have Hyundai over there, you have Toyota over there, you have other brands over there, and these countries have not faced any problem when it comes to E20 fuel. So same should be the case with the Indian car makers also, which is the same when it comes to Brazil and India. The only challenge which needs to be seen are the vehicles which are produced or which were produced before 2023. That is a slight hint. That is a slight glitch which I feel, where things need to be addressed, where the vehicles are produced uh, before 2023. But I'm sure the car makers will come out with options to counter this, like Maruti we discussed, and then you have Bajaj also coming out with a gasket which is of 100 rupees. So there'll be alternatives which will be coming out in the market. Based on the feedback, we would have to wait and see that how does this entire thing evolve. It is too early at this point of time to say that, or to pass a verdict that okay, E20 fuel is not good for the vehicle, or there's something out of the context when it comes to E20 fuel. When you blend ethanol with petrol, which becomes E20. So let's wait and watch on this particular thing, and it is very clear over here that country would gradually scale to E25, E27, and E30 in a phased and calibrated manner in the coming years. So the option at our end is to be prepared, as this will overall benefit the country as well as the economy as well as the climate. I thank you very much for watching the Newsview channel. Yes, please like the hit button. Please subscribe the channel if you like the content. Thank you very much for watching. Namaskar.